Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a pretty small Monday night slate here after all those games on Sunday. In this one, we are looking at the Chicago Bulls taking on the Thunder, second night of a back-to-back for Chicago. Bunch of pretty important injuries in this one, so some stuff to keep an eye on that we'll get into here in just a moment. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com as well with some of those best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We got a couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video that we're trying to stay sizzling hot with. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to FDPicks.com or DKPicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Bulls are -2 at OKC right now. They're trying to snap a rough stretch here where they've lost 6 of their last 7. Obviously, the Thunder have not fared much better lately. They've lost 10 of their last 11, the exception being when the Nets benched had to bench Kyrie. But, just James Harden and the co-stars there, and that was their one win in Brooklyn. So not exactly world beaters here. And the key storyline is that it's Billy Donovan's first matchup with his former team since leaving OKC after coaching there a few years. So 3 other games tonight, though. Just a quick look at them. The Knicks are +6.5 at Cavs, total of just 202 there. The Pacers +3 at the Pelicans, and that is a 215 total. And then the other game we break down, Jazz +9 at Suns, total around 222 there. We tell you why we like the under in our separate episode. But as I mentioned, this is a turnaround spot for the Bulls. It's probably a significant game for them as a franchise just because of the coaching situation. Maybe it explains in some way the trap game losing in Orlando last night. They just haven't been able to score many points lately. And Orlando, surprisingly, has been playing very efficient defense of late. I know they're still the worst team in the NBA by record, but just to give them a little bit of credit. And the Bulls' one win mixed in here is definitely more impressive than anything the Thunder have done lately, beating the Cavaliers, and a team that just never takes the night off. But the offensive numbers are brutal for Chicago in these last 7. I mean, both sides of the ball, really. Actually, they're dead last in defensive rating, dead last in net rating. But offensively, they're not getting anything easy. They're 28th in percentage of points off turnovers, 26th in percentage of fast break points, and 27th in the paint in that span, as they really, really miss Zach LaVine. We know they won't have Lonzo Ball or Alex Caruso for weeks now, but it's LaVine that's been the key missing aspect here. And he actually flew to OKC to join the team along with Javonte Green, making them both game time decisions tonight. And you have to think, if you're going to fly to where your team is on the second leg of a back-to-back, you're probably going to be able to play. I mean, it's otherwise, in this economy, you're paying for that plane ticket. And the last time he played the Thunder, LaVine had 40 points on 15 of 20 field goal shooting to lead the Bulls in a win. Previously, Billy Donovan had led the Thunder to 4 straight wins over these Bulls. So, now with more chess pieces on his side of the table, you'd think he would be able to continue that success on the other side of this matchup. If he can get LaVine back out there, I still kind of like the Bulls without him. It's a Thunder team that isn't necessarily trying to win on a nightly basis, that hasn't really capitalized on rest advantage too often this season. 4-11 straight up versus the Eastern Conference, 8-23 straight up following a loss. That ties into that, willingness to lose, to learn. And they're 29th in fourth quarter scoring, 30th in shooting percentage overall, whereas the Bulls are still second in fourth quarter scoring. That obviously is going to spike more if you get LaVine out there with DeMar DeRozan, but DeRozan has been incredible lately. I mentioned all the areas they struggled, but he's hitting a ton of his mid-range shots, scoring consistently. And at home, the Thunder allow the 6th highest percentage inside the arc. So that is our key stat of the day. And I will toss it over to you to get your take on whether you think the Bulls can turn it around here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you've got a ton of good stuff in here. Honestly, this one is a lot about situation and setting and recent history, a lot more so than it is just looking at these teams from afar on the season. Obviously, OKC you can really you can look at from afar on the season because everything is pretty consistently bad all over the place, especially on the road against the Eastern Conference. As we mentioned, not winning very much or covering that for that matter. Against the Eastern Conference this year, 4-11 straight up against them, 8-23 straight up following a loss. This season is OKC because they were losing a lot. So there's plenty of those 2 in a row for them. And the Chicago, obviously, I'm kind of leaning. First of all, I agree with you 100%. Love this game at -2. If Levine plays, we just got to steal. If Levine doesn't play, we're still talking about a team that's much better than a roster that's still much better than the Thunder's roster. If you've got DD in there, DeMar and Vooch and company still in there. So obviously Caruso and Lonzo, that hurts your defense, which is why I would tend to lean over at 216. Also the Thunder going 8-2 to the over after a loss. There's some things that indicate over, especially just considering the lack of defense on the perimeter from the Bulls tonight, which is huge, obviously, in guarding the SGA and Lou Dort and Giddey on the other side of the floor where all of their offense comes from. So, I'm not going to make it too complicated. Like in this one, if you've got OKC, in this situation against a much better team, despite, as we mentioned, those guys being out for Chicago, I'm not quite as worried about what the Bulls have failed to do on offense as of late, just because even though, Oklahoma City plays at a grindingly slow pace and obviously keeps a lot of their games under, there's still the fact that they're going to be able to score a lot more tonight, in my opinion, than they have been on other teams, which is why I would go there. But I'm not really eyeing the total either. I just wanted to hit on something that was a little bit outside of what you had spoken about, because you really took most of the great information that we really need to know about here about why the Thunder won't be able to hang close in a tight spread against the Bulls. But if you are looking for something on that total, while I lean over at 216, I just can't trust an over with a Thunder team that rarely does that, on the season. So that's why I would still feel really good about just taking the Bulls in this one at -2 and seeing if Levine comes in or not, maybe throwing a bit more on it before that spread can rise even more.
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder are 8-2 to the under when they have a rest advantage here, but the Bulls on a back-to-back. You think this team, I mean, it does go both ways, as we talked about with the Tibbs matchup in against the Wolves recently. These young Thunder players who played for Billy Donovan are going to bring their effort tonight. So I could see that translating into great defense from OKC. But to your point, yeah, they have not scored at home. They have the worst offensive rating in their last 4 home games, and they're playing at a slower pace there. They're 25th in assist to turnover ratio at home. Both these teams struggling to rebound lately, and OKC is just dead last in shooting percentage overall. So not necessarily a team you want to count on for an over really in any situation, but I think there is a chance that they keep Chicago's offensive struggles in check. I think if Levine happens to sit and you bet that under, then you're sitting very pretty, because Chicago has gone under 100 points in the last 2 games. Yet I do think there is some positive regression to be found when you go 12 for 60 from 3 in those 2 games. And this is a team that still shoots the highest percentage from deep on the season at 38%, while attempting, one of the fewest amounts of triples. But they're an efficient offense. And when they get Levine in the lineup, they score 3 more points per game. They're 5-0 with Levine and without Lonzo Ball. You look at their numbers when one of those guys sits, stay about the same. Missing both of them, they're obviously in trouble. But when you get Levine and you don't have Lonzo Ball, this team has been winning. They've been winning, generally when favored, right? What's their record as favorites? 22-7 straight up on the season.
Yeah, straight up.
9-3 on the road when favored. And so, yes, they've lost 6 of the last 7. They've only been favored in 2 of those games, and one of those against the Warriors, who had their own bounce back performance. So I think when you look at the Thunder not expected to win at home, I think that's a perfect get right spot for this team. And I think that they can bounce back from a surprising loss to Orlando last night, which is, again, their one time they've lost when favored in this span.
Yep, and I can't see that happening twice in a row. And the as we mentioned, the Thunder, they don't win at home, especially against Eastern Conference opponents. It's pretty drilling down pretty deep into it. I mean, they failed to cover any spread in 10 of their last 12 home games against the Eastern Conference, whereas Chicago has actually had really good success against the Western Conference in terms of covering the spread, other than playing against the Golden State Warriors, I should mention. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Got a couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video. And until we see you next, happy betting.